Hello, this is Lisa LeRose on PRN-FM. I'm joined by the wonderful Michael J. Russ here on Connect to Love, and today we're going to be delving into some very, very amazing topics. I just moves my heart. But first I want to welcome here on Connect to Love Michael J. Russ, the founder of Life Moves podcast, and just an amazing human being. Welcome, Michael.
Oh, thank you so much. You're too kind. I'm always happy to be here. Always. Always.
We know it. I'm so moved. Last week we had on Annie Brooke, who reached out to us. And, you know, one of the things that really moved me was that the whole body tells a story. And oftentimes when, you know, we end our show, you know, different things sort of unfold, and I, you know, as often is the case, I picked up an Ernest Holmes book, and, you know, it reminded me that everything you've ever thought, done, said, seen, learned, or experienced is an imprint upon your mind, and that memory of all of those things comes together to really bring us forth to who we are and the wisdom that we share. And, you know, I was just so grateful for you, Michael, for connecting us with Annie, because there were so many things that from that conversation that really evolved to shape the next few days of my life. So
awesome.
I just was so grateful for that. And, you know, and as is always, I tend to delve through the books that I have on my shelf, and I have one that has always been really near and dear to my heart, entitled The Wisdom Keepers. And these two authors went around and they met with all of these Native American spiritual elders throughout the country from all different tribes. And one of the ones that I wanted to share that really moved me was from, he was a Pawnee elder. His name was Uncle Frank Davis. That's how he was endeared to, and he went by. But he started to write about wisdom's path, and he said, "My mother was a good woman. I thought she was the wisest person in the whole wide world. So one day when I was just a little fellow, I said, how can I become wise like her? She laughed and laughed, and she said, you know, there's just one thing. She said, life is like a path. We all have to walk the path. If we lay down on the path. If we live through the night, we have to get up and start walking down the path again. As we walk down that path, we find experiences like little scraps of paper in front of us along the way. We must pick up those pieces of paper and put them in our pockets. Every single scrap of paper we come to should be put in that pocket. Then one day we'll have enough scraps of paper to put together and see what they say. Maybe we'll have enough to make some sense, read the information, and take it to heart. Then put those pieces back in the pocket and go on, because there'll be more pieces to pick up. Later, if we pull them out and study them, maybe we can learn a little bit more. If we do that throughout life, we'll know when to pull out the scraps of paper and read more messages. The more we read, the more we'll learn about the meaning of life. If we become wise, or at least wiser than we were. And then she said, but if we never pick up those scraps of paper and never read them, we'll never become wiser. We'll keep on wondering about life and never learn the Creator's instructions. Remember one thing, nobody learns all the answers. I've always tried to pick up the scraps of paper, said Uncle Frank, like my mother said, and he smiled. I've missed a few after the things that just never made sense. Still trying to figure out what those missing scraps are. And, you know, it just really has always touched me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, Michael, you know, about some of the scraps of paper that you've picked up and the messages you've received.
I have mine in a file cabinet, and there are so many in there that it's insane. I like to say that I've probably forgotten about more experiences than most people have had in their entire lifetime, because you know I'm on my fourth, or probably my fifth life right now, in this one single life. But in my view, the scraps of paper represent, and you can tell me if this is what it's supposed to be, but they represent events and experiences that touch us, that impact us. and that if we have the choice of whether to ignore them, sweep them under the carpet, or take them and see them as a piece of paper, put them in our pocket, and at some particular point down the line, go back and reflect upon those and see how we have changed as a result of those pieces of paper, those experiences, those events in our life. And there's something about indigenous wisdom that is just, oh my gosh, so absolutely brilliant. And we could all learn from indigenous cultures. They're so amazingly connected to everything, to heaven, to earth, to the universe, to people. The length of connection and the sense of oneness is mind-blowing, to say the least. And nobody learns everything. That is so true. We've got many lives to learn. There's no way you're going to learn everything. There's so much to learn. However, in my view, if we approach this life from a perspective of we are supposed to learn something and focus on what might that be, while engaging with life with love, embracing the oneness that we all share, that we came from oneness, and we will return to oneness when we pass. In my view, we can make this life amazing, and because we're seeing it from a different perspective. And I believe that for me, it didn't always be that way, but in the last 30 years, I've come to see more of how the people I connect with and the experiences that I had fit into the big picture of my life and what I'm supposed to learn. And to me, that's what this is speaking to, is just that, is there's a big picture. We have to, and it's up to us to remain cognizant that there is a big picture. I tell people every day, I share in my podcasts and talks and just in conversations with people, that there is a big picture. And when we get caught up in the small picture, instead of seeing we miss the pieces of paper. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you get caught up in the minutia, the stick, that's along the path, the tree that may be low hanging, we're going to miss the pieces of paper that are sitting right there for us to pick up and put in our pocket. And that's to me the travesty of life sometimes, is that there's so much distraction and noise that we get taken off the path, and we miss the meaning of what it is that we're supposed to learn from whatever does happen in our life. Death and dying is one of those things that, to me, is a good example. When we have family or friends that pass away, our grieving takes us away from the actual. Sometimes can take us so far away from looking at the macro picture that of why that person was in our life, what they contributed to our life, being grateful for the contribution they made to our life, forgiving ourselves for anything that we might have said or done that impacted the relationship in a negative way, and really seeing it for what it was, and a piece of paper in our life, putting it in our pocket, and then seeing how it kind of comes together at some particular point down the line. I think to me, I've sometimes, like every 10 years, I'll sit around. Let's say every 10 years, but every year at New Year's and my birthday, I kind of have that I take out the pieces of paper and kind of look at them, so to speak, mentally. That's when I do it. So while other people may be celebrating this and that, I'm seeing the new year as something an opportunity to move, to assess and move in a different direction. If I see that, I recommit myself to something in particular about myself in terms of personal growth or relationships or whatever. And birthdays, same thing. I'm here another year in this earthly plane, and I have an opportunity to make an impact and be of service. And how might I do that? It's kind of interesting. There's so many things to think about, but that's a great story, by the way. Great story.
Oh, thank you. I just, there is so much of that in what you're saying, Michael. To be able to know what to keep and what to put away, and when you look at things, I think about, when you were talking, somehow I got a visual of a cartoon, like a children's cartoon, where you had two little explorers, and you see in a cartoon they show the map, and then they show this dotted line, and the one person, they might go in circles, and then they intersect and they cross, and the other person may just be a straight path, and where you end up, it's still the same point, no matter which way you go. And the little things that you find along the way, those scraps of piece of paper, is what makes our life more interesting. And as we have said before, a lot of times people in the world today, they're so busy doing different things that they're missing out on those little pieces of paper, the little nuggets of wisdom, the things that really make a difference and what make us human, and as you were talking, and I don't know why, the other visual that came to me, because I tend to be a visual person, was actually the visual of somebody reaching out a hand, and that being, and I've always been an independent person, and so when somebody reaches out a hand to me, I was, I'm like, oh, no, it's okay, I can do it myself. No, that's all right. I don't need a hand up. But, to when somebody does that, it's like that little scrap of piece of paper. You pull that out and you're like, oh, you know what? Here, I had that experience. Your experience may not be quite the same as mine, but I understand. I feel you in my heart. I understand where you are. I have compassion. I have kindness towards you. I have been where you've been. I've been at that same spot and picked up. It may not be the same writing on the piece of paper, but I know where you are. And so for me, one of the greatest lessons of my life is to learn to take somebody's hand and allow them to help me, and not having to be so independent, that it's okay to, share in the wisdom of others. I don't have to know all the answers, which I think sometimes.
That's so true. I agree.
Yeah, people will call me, and sometimes I feel like I'm Google. Like they'll say, "What is it? What's the weather today?" Or like how many?
You got to be kidding me.
I don't know. Yeah, and then
you got 18 sources of weather right in front of you, and
Yeah.
It's not the weather. It's the conversation.
Yeah, it's not the weather. It's the conversation. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the connection.
Exactly.
It's like, I'll call and ask about the weather, but it's not the weather. It's the connection. And this is what we sometimes get caught up in the minutia, thinking that, why are you calling me? You've got 18 sources that can tell you the weather. No, you're calling because you want the connection, the relational connection with another person. And what came to mind when you talk about the little things that often what came to me when you were just speaking about your life is that it's the littlest things that often make the biggest difference in our lives.
Absolutely.
And there's a story that I came across last year of a gentleman who had become very wealthy in business and was a great benefactor. He gave away money, supported causes. He donated to organizations and schools and had his name inscribed and all that for donating the funds and the money and helping these people. And he dies and he goes to his guide and he says, "Yeah, look at me. I did a great job, didn't I?" And he goes, and they said, "It wasn't that. It was, do you remember the time that you were in the rain and you saw a woman crying at a bus stop? You were on your way to work. You had an umbrella, and the woman was sitting there and had no umbrella, and she was at a bus stop, and she was bawling her eyes out. Yeah, I think I remember that." And he goes, "What did you do?" He actually put his briefcase down. He was compelled for some reason, to put his briefcase down and sit down next to her bench and ask her on the bench and ask her what went on, what's the matter, and in his consolation of her, which he thought was just nothing. Like his guide said, that was one of the defining moments of your life. And he said, you got to be kidding me. I made all this money. I became very successful, and I donated to charities and all this. He says, no. It wasn't about that. It was about this moment, the way you impacted that person, that woman at that bench. You helped transform her life. You showed her the kindness that helped her to understand that kindness did exist in the world. And she went on to do great things. And he's like, no, you got to be kidding me. He thought, it's all about the money. It's all about doing this. It's all about, big houses and making big contributions to foundations and charities and all of that. And no. It's the individuals, the treasure of individual connection that really makes the difference. And I always remember that. And so I'm going to tell you this little story about July 4th. So we're out at the beach all day. I rented a tent. I have a friend who has a beach service, tent, chairs. We've got 7 people. And we're all there. One of the couples brought cupcakes. And I used to be in the sunscreen business, so I bought all the sunscreen, and I bought a sunburn. I always bring a sunburn gel to the beach. We had the most amazing sunburn gel, natural, chemical-free sunburn gel, and real high quality. And I always bring a tube of it because I still have a couple thousand tubes in my shed, and so I share them with people. And I said, I sat down, and there was this other group of young people, 2 guys, 3 girls. They were probably in their mid-20s, and they were next to us playing the music a little bit too loud. And I said, because we had music too, and they were drowning us out. So I got up, and I went over, and I said, excuse me. The young guy said, yeah, sure. I said, could you turn the music down just a little bit? And he said, oh, yeah, no problem. And then I started, as I normally do, I engage with him. Here I am, a gray-haired guy talking with him. I asked him, I said, where are you from? The guy said, Columbia, South Carolina, and he's in the military from Pensacola. We came to meet. I said, really? What branch? He says, Air Force. I said, that's awesome. And he comes up out of the water, and I introduced myself to him, and I said, my dad was in the military for 22 and a half years, retired a colonel, and we got to talking about that. And the other ladies come up and the like. And I said, I was watching this. This guy was already half burned, and because he'd come from somewhere where he hadn't been outside, wasn't used to the intensity of the sun. And that's fine. I'm going to keep an eye on this. I didn't mention anything about it. But when I came back, my girlfriend and my other buddy go, he's going to get the sunburn gel today, isn't he? And I said, he doesn't know it yet, does he? He doesn't know he's going to get that. Doesn't know he's going to have that taken care of, right? And I said, because they didn't bring an umbrella, they didn't bring anything. They're out all day. They're like all day. They were there all night till the fireworks went off. And I said, and what was interesting is that I think it was about 5:00. I was getting ready to leave just to go home and take a shower and change clothes and come back. And spend another 3 hours relaxing, talking, chatting, and eat a little something. And I just before I left, I got up and I went over. I said, yeah, he's going to get the sunburn gel. So I took the sunburn gel tube over there, and I said, hey, you're burning pretty badly, aren't you? He says, yeah, I am. Well, this is what I'd love for you to do. I'm going to give you this sunburn gel, which is going to take care of everything that you've got. All you need to do is just go over to that shower over there at the restaurant that we're in front of. Just wash the sand and all the spray sunscreen you put on, that chemical stuff you put on that didn't work. Spray that all, wash all that off, and then put this on. This is good for your skin, and it'll help arrest that damage that you have. And he goes, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Thank you so much. You're incredibly kind. My gosh. He was like, the look on his face was like he startled that somebody actually cared about, his skin. And I said, we're going to go and we're going to come back in about an hour. He says, we'll be here all this time. We'll keep an eye on things. And I said, well, that's fine. And I came back, and then the people who bought the cupcakes, we couldn't eat them all. So later on, long story short, just before the fireworks, I picked up the cupcakes, and I took them over to he and it was now 7 or 8 friends. And I said, here, you guys have a couple of these, relax, chill. And he goes, oh, my gosh. you're amazing. You're like the kindest person I've ever known. I'm like,
Aww.
no, I'm just sharing. And at the end of the night, I actually, after the fireworks, we were getting ready to leave, and I walked over and I gave him my podcast card. I went over and I said, how have you guys enjoyed the day? He says, man, you're like, you are so kind. I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I've never had anyone, that was as kind as you. I said, well, look, all you need to do is just remember it and pay it forward. That's all. And here's my podcast. If I realize you all are about 35 years younger than me, 35, 40 years younger than me. However, maybe what you learn in this podcast can help you skip a few steps along the way. There's enough wisdom in here to really just, you may not be ready for all of it, but maybe some of it will apply right now, and then maybe some more later. So just expose yourself to it. He says, "Oh my gosh, thank you. You're so special. You're so amazing." And he kept thanking me, and I'm like, "That's fine. Just enjoy your time here, be safe, and get back home safely." And I left. However, what's interesting is that, as I'll tell our audience, you have to look for these experiences. If you're all caught up in your own little world, wherever you are, you'll never notice when someone else might need a leg up, might need a hand. Maybe there's a connection that you can make. He asked me what my name was. I gave him my name. He told me his name, Andrew. It was great, and I think it's all awesome. It wasn't his name, though. It wasn't like where he was from or all the other facts. It was like he was a really nice guy, and he deserved to just not be in pain, maybe move forward, or maybe experience a kindness that he had never experienced before. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. It was just the way I am. And the moral of the story is we are running through life sometimes so fast that we miss opportunities to connect with people, even just so briefly, and make an impact, a positive impact on their life that perhaps they'll be talking about and they'll remember for the rest of their life. So you can be that piece of paper for someone, I guess is the point I'm getting to.
That's
you can be that piece
Michael.
of paper. You can be that piece of paper for them. And you just have to open your eyes and look and just take advantage of those opportunities to be that piece of paper. It's spectacular. I look for them all the time, and I know you do too. And I hope our listeners do as well. Life is busy right now. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're sold this dog and pony show of we've got to do this, be that by this age. We've got to save for retirement for this, and we've got to do this for that, and we've got to get that degree and get this thing here and get that there, and get that car, get that house, have those 2 kids, and for to be grandkids for your parents. And there's this whole litany of things that you have to somehow accomplish by some particular age. And if you're stuck attempting to accomplish that, there's a lot of other meaningful things that can also impact your life in such a positive way. And sometimes people they don't find this out until they're in their 60s or 70s. And I'm like, but there were so many pieces of paper, so many that, so many pieces of paper. Let's make it a point. And I hope there's some young people listening to this and can begin to start looking for those pieces of paper, looking for opportunities to be the piece of paper, looking for the opportunities to pick up those pieces of paper, to integrate them into our psyche and our thinking and our wisdom experientially.
Oh, 100%, Michael. There was a saying, and I don't recall it exactly verbatim, but it said, some people come into our lives and quickly go, and others come and they leave footprints on our heart, and we are never, ever the same. And I believe that's exactly what you were to that young man. You were a footprint on his heart. And, whether or not, whatever he gets, where in his journey home, I'm sure that he recalled you. I'm sure you will be the source of stories when he has children, if he does. the kindness that you extended to him, even with the cupcakes, the thing is you extended that and it was received and it was appreciated. They could have said, no, I don't want your cupcakes. But regardless,
sure.
it was like, okay, no problem. That, and you have to be open to that as well. That sometimes, and I in my holistic practice, sometimes people just weren't ready for the information. As you said, you never know when you pull that piece of paper out and that message is so appropriate for what's going on in your life.
So true.
Sometimes
absolutely.
It's like you look at it and you go, oh, I don't really get this. Yeah, you know what? That's like doesn't resonate with me. Not even make sense right now. But then 6 months down the road, you go, oh my gosh! If I would only have paid attention to that little piece of paper, my journey could have been that much easier.
So true. So true. I love your comment, be a footprint on someone's life. I can see that on a T-shirt right now. Yeah. Just just share it with the world, because that's what it's really about. And it's like, get out of your own drama, get away from the drama dance, and start seeing a life and begin to see opportunities. And by the way, it's interesting because you're right about one thing. Sometimes it's not timely. It might not be timely, and it might not be received the way you think. I have an interesting intuition. I think that maybe 1 out of 100 times that happens. However, and it's incredibly rare, because I have sort of this. I observe people, and
I do too.
A lot of it is it's about timing. It's about timing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have gone over to that gentleman before he had the sunburn, when it was lighter, might not have been as well received. Who knows? I just have, I guess, a sense of innate timing. When I listen to my intuition, and my timing is just about right. When I'm playing golf with somebody and I notice that they're incredibly frustrated with their game, I don't immediately, after I see the first or second really bad effort, go over to them and attempt to help them. I wait until like 90% of the round, and then I'll go over to them, because quite frankly, I want to see whether or not they can self-correct, whether they can recognize what they're doing, that they're being their own worst enemy. And when I understand that when they get to the point where they wish they knew exactly what they were doing, and sometimes they'll actually say, "What am I doing?" That will be about 90% into the round.
Right.
And then I'll offer us what it is. It's like, you have to have intuition. You have to have the right timing for when, because people really need to get to the point where they sometimes ask for help, whether it's verbal or otherwise, where they're you can have a good sense, if you do it enough. You have a good sense about when that point is, and at that point, they're ready to accept. They're receptive, I should say. That element of alchemy, receptivity. People, it's the one that most people forget about. You can be a teacher, however, the teacher is most effective when the student is ready for what is being taught, what is being shared. And sometimes they have to go through the pain and angst, the frustration, the worry, in order to become receptive. And you got to let them get to that particular point. Otherwise, what you're imparting to them, conveying to them, is not going to be as well received, so to speak. And that might sound cruel, but it's not. It's just letting somebody experience their life the way they're experiencing it, and let them decide when something needs to change. And I always remember, people sometimes will continue, and it's not your fault, nothing you did. Sometimes people will continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a completely different result in their life, and it's just not going to happen. And you still have to wait until they get to the point where they express that they need to change. Something needs to change for them. And then they're open, they're aware enough to, receptive enough to receive what's being shared. And it's, I wish I had 1 million listeners for my podcast and this podcast, by the way. However, what I always keep in mind is that the people who are listening are the people who are ready to hear what we have to share.
Absolutely.
They're aware enough and alert. And you, even if it's just, you go through your entire life and it's only one person, one soul that you've impacted, you've done your job. You've done the thing that you were supposed to do. And I always have to remember that. It's not about the number of likes to a post. It's not about that. It's the quality of the connection that you've made. And that, to me, I'm deeply grateful. I'm grateful to anybody who takes a moment to listen to this show or listen to the podcast, because gratitude is just part of it. We're here to share what we have, knowledge, to share the pieces of paper that people can pick up and take on the put in their pocket and refer to later on. And I love that story. That's like, dang, I'm going to adopt that. I love that. I love the story, Pawnee story about the wisdom keeper and the paper. It's just like, wow, walking down the path and there's paper, and that's a great analogy. It's an awesome analogy.
Yeah, it is. And, Michael, I love what you say about us having things, around us that we don't necessarily see. And when you were speaking, which I have a DVD that many years ago, I absolutely love the author Greg Braden, and I've gone to many of his lectures to hear him in person. And one of the lectures that I went to, he showed a video. It was at a Celebrate Your Life event I think it was in Chicago, and he showed a short clip from a Chinese medicineless hospital where people come with all sorts of disease states. This particular individual had bladder cancer. And at that Chinese medicineless hospital, there is no doctor and patient. It's actually teacher and student, because we all have the opportunity to be both. And they had this particular individual, they took a ultrasound, so you could see it live on the screen of this very large tumor. And then on the other, which was, they froze the frame so that you could see what the size of the tumor was, and then they had a live one. And these individual teachers came in, and they started to move the energy, and they just started, they said a word that meant no cancer, and it became faster and faster and faster. And as you saw it on the live ultrasound, the tumor got smaller and smaller and smaller until it was just gone. And they all clapped, and it was, and I was just like, wait a minute, how, in what universe does that happen, right?
Yeah, really.
So
absolutely.
I was very, very determined to figure out where that came from. Where is that video clip? How can I get that? Because for me, it just changed my whole concept of what's possible. And it's on a DVD called 101 Miracles in Healing by Luke Chan. He's a Qigong master. And I've had the video for many years. I have the book. I have the video. There's practices in it. And here again, it's those little pieces of paper. That little piece of paper was in my pocket. But it wasn't until my partner is experiencing a challenge that I pulled that DVD out to open the horizons, to re-examine what the possibilities are of no cancer. And what I never did all these years, I never watched beyond really maybe another 15 minutes. I never really delved into the exercises. So the one night I decided I'd put it in, and I'm like, well, what exactly is this, and how do you move the energy? I started doing the exercises that were in the video, and I thought it was all about bringing your hands together and allowing the universal consciousness to fill up your hands, and then pulling it out and bringing it in and pulling it out. So fast forward a few days, I'm at a friend of mine. She had a dog that somebody abandoned, and she's a dog groomer. So she asked if I would take in the dog. Of course, I always have an open house for somebody new. But while I was at her grooming salon, I was just going to go and pick up the dog and leave. That was my goal, but she was busy. And as I was sitting there, I looked in the cage, and there was this dog, and I'm looking at it, twisting and turning, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, that dog's in pain. I asked her, what's going on with that dog? And she said, oh, she's a 16-year-old. She just fell down the stairs. And she, her mother's really worried about her. I said, it would be okay if I took the dog out of the cage? And she said, sure. And I just held her on my lap, and I used that exercise, and I pulled it out, and I put it in. And I really wasn't doing it with any intention other than to just sort of relieve the dog of some pain. I had no expectations. The dog relaxed. I put her in a little dog bed in the window. She slept the whole time until she was ready to be groomed. Now, unbeknownst to me, this dog had not stood for several months to been able to stand and not been able to be groomed standing. Her legs were not strong enough. And she stood the whole grooming session. So,
wow.
Whatever that was, and it was just maybe taking a few minutes. Was I ready for that information when I bought the video years ago? Maybe possibly not. I mean, my life would have been a lot easier just learning that simple exercise. And I've been playing with it and practicing it, and there's still more exercises on the DVD. In my timing right now, I haven't had time to watch, but I certainly intend to, and but I just thought that was, when you have that opportunity, you sort of, you have these again on a DVD, right? You can fast forward through the chapters. You can choose what you want to watch. You can choose, So again, it's that same analogy about those scraps of paper, and when you pull that one out of your pocket and you share it, and I did with that dog. And what I love about animals is there is no placebo effect because it either works or it doesn't.
True. That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
But you actually, let me see if I get this right. The DVD showed you how to manipulate the energy that was impacting this dog's hip?
Yes, it's called Chi-Lel, like C-H-I, and then the second word is L-E-L, so Chi-Lel. And it's a form of Qigong that they practice. And what's interesting and I have several videos about this particular hospital. There's a Dr. Shaw. I did coursework with him. He's absolutely incredible. He's a medical doctor. He's a doctor of Chinese medicine. He's a Qigong grandmaster. And Dr. Shaw went to study with Dr. Guo, who was the founder of this hospital. And when Dr. Shaw went to study with him, when he asked to study with him, he asked to be his student. And Dr. Guo said, no, you're not ready. I don't need a student. And Dr. Shaw was very insistent, and, finally Dr. Guo acquiesced. And, Dr. Guo is now departed, but his daughters are still running the hospital. But there's a fascinating documentary on Dr. Shaw and Dr. Guo, and where they discuss things. Now, I don't know the connection with Luke Chan. I with the founder of Vibrant Living, Glenn Brooks, he was familiar with him, but it was through Greg Braden that I, saw this video that opened these doorways to me. But it's a very simple practice of just, sort of forming an open hand, a little bit curved, and you bring your hands together, but not touching, and allowing as they explain, the universal consciousness to fill into that vessel, and then you pull it out to expand, to allow more wisdom to flow in, and then you bring it in again, and you gently. So it's sort of like a flowing motion where you just almost like the hula, right? Where you're bringing the hands, right? It's a gentle swaying motion, and you know. And that was all I did. I thought all I wanted to do, I wanted to do was to see if I could help this dog be out of pain. And she was out of pain. So.
And it worked. It worked.
It worked. Yes, it did.
It's so amazing when you see that sort of thing happen. You become it just increases your level of belief in things that cannot be seen. And because there's a lot of people who don't necessarily believe something unless they can see it, touch it, taste it, or feel it. Interesting thing about energy is and kindness and love and all that. It's just they're beyond all that. The impact that they make on your life is not something that is going to be impacted by something you can grasp with the four senses. You can feel it, and it's beautiful. That is awesome. As much as I love pets, and I know that pets come into our lives for various reasons, and I know that you were where you were when you were there because there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, and you were there to help that particular dog at that moment in time, and it's wonderful. I think it's great. Yeah. And if you pull your piece of paper out of your pocket, so to speak, mentally, and perform that kindness and love, it's beautiful. I love it. And I know your connection with dogs. You got a bigger connection with dogs than I do, a deeper connection. I mean, you do. I mean, that's wonderful. And that's kind of cool. I love seeing that kind of stuff. But I understand as well that we get caught up in our lives and the things that are going on. It's interesting because I was thinking about it today that the number of things I say no to, things that I just don't engage in, because I understand that what I might be doing is taking on something taking on a bit too much. I'd like to have time to, meditate, and sometimes I get caught up at the barn and I don't get to. Sometimes I come home and I got to do something that needs to be done at the house, fix something, clean something, something that happens. However, it's up to us to design our lives around the opportunity to connect with people, pets, animals, ourselves. We have to do that. It's if you buy into the whole I always need to be shopping, or shopping is my happiness. You're going to end up with a lot of stuff and not feel so good about it at some particular point in time, because happiness isn't outside of us. And it's the one message I think I've been driving home more than anything else on my podcast, likened podcast, is that we are as souls, we have to make sure we don't get too caught up in the nuance of the reality, which this is the harsh reality on this earthly plane. And if we get caught up in it and commit in what I call emotional capital to it, to things that don't really serve us at any given moment, we're going to miss having the emotional capital so we're going to lack the emotional capital to invest in the things that actually do serve us and others. And that is my constant struggle. I don't call it that. That's my vision, is to make sure that I plan my life around connections with people, connections with friends, enjoying experiences with friends, like this beach time on July 4th, going to pizza tomorrow with other friends, playing golf on the weekend with friends. There are great people out there that we come across that we have a positive impact on them. They have a positive impact on us, and we have to make sure that we don't get so caught up in the nuance of drama and distraction and in other stimuli that we forget that those connections are what is important. The other stuff is not important. This is important. The connections with people, and because it's fun. It's fun with them too. It is something you can sense and you can feel good about. And as someone said, I think it was somebody channeled somebody by the name of Chloe, and it was talking about the fact that our lives should be 50%, 51% service to others. Think about that for a second. How often do we actually make it a point, make it an intention to serve others in a positive way? I'm not talking about telling them what to do, controlling them, and all of that. I'm just talking about basically when we see opportunities like you and I have been talking about for this hour, seeing opportunities to express kindness to others, to show that kindness exists, to perform kindness, to perform random acts of kindness, or whatever I don't know, it's not necessarily a cliche, but it's something that's become sort of cliche, random acts of kindness, to perform random acts of love, random acts of empathy and compassion with other people. It makes you feel good. Giving of yourself in that way immediately lifts your own spirits. It elevates your own frequency, so to speak, to levels that you could never possibly achieve any other way. And I love that. I absolutely love it. And to look for opportunities, to be on the lookout for opportunities, that's a great intention to have in life. I like it. Chill out. I like it. Chill. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that one up. There's some powerful forces out there we're not aware of.
Mhm. Oh, for sure. And so for me, you say like paying attention to different things. Sometimes I'll be in a bookstore and a book will fall off the shelf. It would have been anything that I was planning on reading or looking for, and I think, geez, that's weird. What's that all about? What is that all about? And one of the books for me that was like that was a book written by Marianne Williamson, and I had never heard of her. I didn't know who she was, and I had just separated from a 6-year relationship. I broke up with my boyfriend, and I was questioning myself on a lot of different ways, and and her second book was called A Return to Home, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of the exact book. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was one of those books that fell off the shelf, and I opened it up, and it was exactly what I needed to read, exactly what I needed to hear. And I've given so many copies of her book away, and that doorway opened up A Course in Miracles to me. I had never heard of A Course in Miracles, and really what that's all about is exactly what you're speaking to, Michael, is about love and that connection. And, the things that we, learn and question and guide us. And, one of Glenn Brooks' things was love always brings up something unlike itself. And I thought, well, what does that exactly mean? What does that mean? But, you knew Glenn as I knew Glenn, and oftentimes there would be challenges that would come into his life, and to be able to see that as an opportunity to grow in a space of love was really a gift that he had. Sometimes, he had to sort of circumvent through things and get to that point. But ultimately, he did, and I think about that when I have a challenge with somebody. I'm like, okay, how is this person crying out for love? How can I re-examine it? How do I need to love myself differently? Different, just aspects, all different aspects of that, and a lot of it has to do with kindness. And I think as you said, learning to be kind to others, but also learning to be kind to yourself, and knowing when to say, you know what, that doesn't resonate with me. I'm not going to go with the crowd. I instead, my soul needs this today, and to take the time to do that. And and Tim Freak, who we talked about when you talked about meditation, I've been re-listening to his book Deep Awake, and he talks about how meditation, for him, when his mind wanders, he doesn't beat himself up. He's like, wow, this is where this goes. And we always think that things have to be a certain way, but again, going back to those little pieces of paper, you may find that your story, your path, may not look like somebody else's, and to accept that and honor whatever that is, I think is very, very, very powerful.
So true. You have to. It's everything you said resonates so completely, and this is a little wisdom we pick up along the way, and sometimes we don't get the meaning. I think let's put it this way: everybody is searching for something. In my view, it's love, it's oneness, it's connection, loveness, oneness, connection. That's what's being looked. That's what people are looking for. Disguised as many things, disguised as all kinds of different things. And however, that's ultimately when you have love in your life, loving friendships, loving connection, no matter what degree, you are a better person for it. And when you have the ability to connect with people on that level, and it's interesting. I live in the South, and everybody down here says hello to everybody. You're walking down the street, everybody as they drive by, people are waving through their windows. Hi, how are you? What's up? Hello. And I came here from California, and California happens about 1 out of every 6-8 times. In New York City, you walk down the street in New York City because there's 8 million people living in a very small area. You're talking about privacy and space is a premium. So people, when they get out, they really don't want to talk to people. They don't want to talk to people. They're in their own personal space, and so they don't wave on purpose because they don't want to start a conversation. They want to be by themselves, and when they're out of their apartments or houses or whatever. And it's a whole different spin. And I've lived in places where people say hello to everybody, and I've lived in places where people don't because of one reason or another. The interesting thing I'm finding about down here is that we're getting a lot of Northeasterners who are moving here and Midwesterners who are unfamiliar with that. So when you're talking about, even on our own street, people have sold and moved away, done whatever, and the people who have bought their houses, whereas the person inside would be out walking every day, and we walk every day and we say hi to people and we talk to people, and they never leave the house. They never leave the house. They never walk down the street. They get in their car and they drive down the street and leave. Sometimes they say hello and sometimes they don't. However, 6 months here, 8 months here, never seen them. Like, wow, really? But they came from California, Orange County, where it was very crowded. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to speculate, being friendly is not part of their social DNA. It's just, they're in their house, they're doing everything, and when they leave their house, they drive away down the street, go to wherever they go, and they come back and they go back into their house. And somebody from Ohio did the same thing. Not to say there's anything bad about Ohio. I'm not. There are a couple of families that moved in down the street. Same thing. Never see them. Never wave. Never. It's kind of like, and you're like, it's interesting. When Hurricane Michael hit, I'll go to this story very quickly. When Hurricane Michael hit, this place is a destruction zone. Let's put it that way. And we were only on the outer west side outer west side of a Cat 5. So, however, when we got done cutting down trees, cleaning up debris, all up and down the street, there was 10 feet of debris in front of everyone's house, literally, all on their whole property line, 10 feet tall of tree debris, shrub debris, you name it, housing debris, stuff. And that after it was over, everybody, we had a community that kind of came together, and everybody went knocking on everybody's door. Are you okay? If you stayed, if they stayed there, if they didn't stay, we went and took a look at their house, because we get people calling and say, how, is my house okay? And we could tell them, we could assess the damage. We had no power for 3 days, 3 or 4 days actually. So we had to organize going out and getting water, getting gasoline to run generators, and we had a truck. So we have a truck. So we you need gas, put your gas can in here, and I'm driving 45 minutes away to the west to get gas, like everybody else was doing. So the gas lines were very long. So sometimes we have to drive an hour and a half to get to a place where gas was prevalent without a lot of to get a cell phone signal. You had to drive 30 minutes to get a cell phone signal. There was no cell phone signal anywhere around here. So when things happen, when that happened, everybody in the street came together, and some of those people who came together and helped, they're not here anymore. However, we would do the same thing again, I'm sure, and that's what you do. You come together, you help other people. If you're cooking, you share your food. If you've got air conditioning, you share that. Because you've got a generator and it's running an air conditioner, whatever the case may be. And that's when you really find out who your neighbors are. Like, when disaster strikes, you kind of find it out. You share what you have. You make sure everybody's all right, and you go help them clean up their property, and sometimes they come and help. It's not a matter of whether they come clean up yours. If there are older people in the street, you want to go make sure that they're okay and that their property is, being taken care of. They may not have all the energy and the ability to get out. So it's interesting. We're coming to the end of our hour, but I wanted to simply say that that's what happens. You
absolutely
connection.
The connection, and it's just what Lewis Carroll always would say. One of the secrets of life is everything that's worth doing is what we do for others. And that's what you do, Michael. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful to our audience here on Connect to Love on PRN FM
Absolutely.
That join us each week. And, for you making the time to share your wisdom, it's just, it warms my heart more than you will ever know. And that connection to love that you feel is just phenomenal. I'll let you sign off the show today, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. Michael?
Well, thank you. Definitely. I'll just simply say that if you take nothing else from this episode, the title of it is Wisdom and Kindness, and keep the story of the pieces of paper in mind. Watch out for the pieces of paper in your life. Put them in your pocket and refer to them, and be kind to everyone and anyone. Don't get so caught up in things that you forget about that kindness really heals more than anything else. Kindness and love. Okay? Until next time, be well, stay safe, and make every day absolutely amazing, because you have every power to do so.
Yeah. And so it is. Thank you.